Hey guys, welcome to Bethel Online. My name is Jason. I'm one of the pastors here, and we're so glad you decided to make us a part of your weekend. No matter who you are, where you come from, we're so glad you're here. Our vision is to be a safe place for real people to encounter the real Jesus and experience real change. Our hope and our prayer is that no matter who you are or what you've been through, you know that you are loved and you are wanted here. We would love to get to know you better and help you connect with all that's going on. You can do this by going to our website at www.bethel.us or by downloading the Bethel app. You can find our app by searching Bethel Putco in your app store. Both online and in the app, you can fill out digital connection card. It only takes a minute and it'll help us know how to serve you better. Another way you can connect today is through giving. Your generosity at Bethel directly impacts God's mission to radically change people's lives in Putnam County and beyond. Through the ministries of Bethel and the many local and regional organizations we support, people are able to see the grace of God and how much He loves them. You can always give on our website at bethel.us/give or in the Bethel app. Thank you for partnering with us and making a difference. Well, thanks again for tuning in online today. Know that you are wanted and welcome here, and you are loved. I hope you all have a great day.
Good morning and welcome to Bethel Online. I'm so glad you joined us for our second week in our series, Missing Peace. I hope this Christmas that the offer of Christ coming in peace, that God sending His Son to offer us peace with Him and to offer us peace in our life, I hope that it's taking root in your life and your heart in this season, that you're taking enough of a moment to take a deep breath and to recognize this great gift that God has given us through His Son. I don't know about you, but the holidays tend to put us around a lot of people. And have you noticed some people are just easy to love? Like you run into them and you're like, oh man, I miss them. I wish I had more time with them. You know, you just kind of hit on all cylinders when you hang together and spend time together and you think similarly, and it's easy to love them. It's easy to think positively about them. And then the reality is that sometimes those scenarios, they put us around people that make us crazy, that like we can kind of avoid most of the time, but then when we're put in a room, we're reminded that like, man, they make me nuts. They make me crazy. And what do we do, and how do we, in the middle of this season, in the middle of life, as we're around people? Because let's be honest, at our best, we're probably pretty easy for some people to love, and at our worst, we're probably pretty hard to love. And the reality is that if you look at the model that God shows us through Jesus, is that while we were undeserving of His love, He loved us because of His character. And so as His people, how do we go out into a world of people who are capable of sin and mistreatment and all of these things? And how do we love in the way that Jesus loved? I don't know about you, but it doesn't take too much sometimes when I'm in a bad mood to become offended. Just this morning, I was getting some groceries at the store, and I don't really like to shop. But I went in, and I was just kind of checking out kind of what the deal of the day was and trying to figure out some stuff. I was going to cook some breakfast and cook enough food for me to have lunch this week, and was really kind of in a hurry. And I get there, and like the lady in front of me is arguing over 25 cents on nearly every deal. It's like, no, it's supposed to be this. And then the lady would run to the back, or she would look on her handheld computer, and the lady was she turned around, she was griping to me about the store, and I was like, I don't care, lady, I just got to cook breakfast. And like by the end, I'd have dropped her a 20 just to pay for her groceries and get her out of my way, you know. And she was so offended by the lady at the front, and the lady at the front was so offended by her, and I just wanted to go. And at some point, I found myself kind of stewing at the lady, but the reality is I don't know her situation. And maybe those quarters that she was arguing over and those little price adjustments that she was working for, maybe she needs that to pay her bills this month. But I started to be like see her as like an obstacle to me accomplishing my goals rather than a person living her life. And I didn't see the story for what it probably was. Maybe there's something in her past that just makes her willing to bargain and barter and argue, and maybe it's just been a way of life for her. Or maybe she's just going through a really hard time, but I began to think she was just trying to slow down my process, man. And somewhere in my mind, I think I started to like create a story about her. Like, man, this lady got up this morning and she's going to make everyone miserable all day long. And like, she came in here looking for a fight. And the next thing you know, I'm offended. I'm offended because I had to deal with her and listen to her and the way she spoke and talked to people. And like, before she left, I was like, fine, get out of here, right? Just go. I was offended. I let myself become offended by a person I didn't know because I built up a story that I had no clue about in my head, whether it was true or not. You know, if you're in a continuous search to be offended, you'll always find what you're looking for. I think about this in the gym. You know, I kind of like my space. I like to go work out. And some mornings you go into the gym, there are certain seasons of the year where the gym is just stuffed full of people. Like right before Christmas and in the new year, like it is tight in there. You know, everybody's sniffling and coughing because it's just that season of the year. And you know, you will obviously be working on a bench. You'll get up, you'll walk away for 2 seconds, and somebody's sitting at the bench, and you're like, come on, I just want to get my workout in. And the reality is sometimes we just wake up looking to be offended, when in reality, chances are most people are just there for the same things we're there for. And if you go into the gym looking for offense, hey man, if you go into church looking for someone who can offend you, you will find it for sure. Because people are offensive sometimes. When it comes to God, without His love, we have lived in a way that's offensive to the holiness of God. You know, being offended is inevitable. I mean, sometimes it's way more serious things than the guy at the gym who takes your bench. Every time that you're working back, he just seems to be working his back. Every time that you're working arms, he seems to be working arms. Like, sometimes the reality is it's more obvious and it's more legitimately offensive than that. Like, you know, you're trying to help somebody out, and then they kind of work against you. You know, you meet somebody for some marriage counseling, and you finally get around to a spot where you give them some honesty about what you think are part of the things they need to address, and then they come after you and get mad at you, and then you're a bad person. In reality, you met with them on your time. And you know, being offended is inevitable. People do offensive things. It's just one of the truths of faith is that we, on our own, by our own accounts, we're sinful. And we are offensive to other people sometimes. The crazy thing is I could tell you all these stories about how rude I perceive other people to be in the gym, in the store, but man, there are moments of my life when I'm just offensive. Where I'm selfish, prideful, and rude. And the reality is that when it comes to being offended, it's going to happen, but living offended is a choice. Because you can kind of feel something rising up in you when you begin to take offense all of the time. And the reality is if you're looking for offense in one place, you'll find it. And then you'll carry with you this behavior of, look, you know, you'll get on social media and everything everyone says will seem stupid. You'll watch the news and you'll be offended by either the people on the news, the journalists, or you'll be offended by the people they're talking about, or you'll be offended by the politician that talks. And the reality, though, is that if you stay offended, you'll start to become unhealthy and be even more offensive. So living in offense is a choice. It's a choice to say, you know what? I'm going to let it go. I'm going to go home 3 minutes later today because the lady in the checkout line had some things going on. I'm going to take a little longer to work out today because the guy needed the bench too. Because the world doesn't revolve around me. And we can choose that, hey, I'm not going to allow these things to eat at me and bother me. Romans chapter 12, verse 14 through 18 talks a little bit about some of these bigger offenses. And it talks about those who actually will come against us and persecute us. That because of us, they will just literally do mean things to us. And Paul flips things upside down when he says, bless those who persecute you. Bless and do not curse. To bless means to speak well of and hope good for. You know, this morning, rather than hoping the lady just went home and didn't mess with anybody else today at the store, I probably should have been hoping that her day got better. I probably should have given her a kind smile while she was waiting to get her prices right. You know, I should have given her the Bob Barker smile and said, no, you were 25 cents over. But instead of being kind, when she turned back and looked at me, I gave her the I'm waiting look. You see, it's a choice to stay offended. How you operate within offense is really important. Some of us, though, some of you've gone through things at the hands of people who they consistently try to do things to hurt you. And Paul's model here of bless those who persecute you, it's not a requirement to continue putting yourself in a place where you allow them to hurt you. But when it comes to them, I've often found that healing comes when I can begin to hope good things for people who don't hope good things for me. And it's often a sign of my own healing. And Paul goes on to say, rejoice with, how do we do that? How do we bless those around us? When they rejoice, we rejoice. When they mourn, we mourn. You know, that when that person who's done you wrong over and over and over again winds up on the chatter page because they got picked up and they got in trouble, rather than sitting there gloating with pride over, haha, you finally got it, maybe we should learn how to mourn in their moment of mourning and trouble, and to literally have a desire that they would see change or that they would see transformation. You know, there's room. I love when verse 15 says, rejoice with those who rejoice. So often when good things happen to other people, when we're easily offended, we begin to ask, well, why didn't that happen for me? Do you know there's room for you to cheer on somebody else while they're winning, and there's still space for you to win too? He goes on to say, live in harmony with one another. Not disunity. Within the church, this is so important. I mean, we all have different ways we would do things, but I think this is so important, and it's one of the signs of churches that are effective is when we all get on the same page and we work in harmony. Ultimately, at Bethel, we want to love God, love others, and live on purpose and live on mission. And so when we are doing that, when each of us are doing that, and together we're working toward these common causes, it changes things. It's something people don't experience very often. Out in the world, it seems that everyone kind of goes after their own self, but we're ordered here by Paul the same way that he orders the early church, live in harmony with one another. Like as much as possible in your home, don't be after each other. Don't be trying to play tug of war. Be trying to live for a common cause. Good leaders bring people together for a common cause. And then he warns this, don't be proud. Meaning, don't be thinking more highly of yourself than you should. Don't be thinking, well, there they are over there impeding me, and I have such important stuff to do. It might be that what they're doing is very important to them. Don't be so proud to feel like everyone has to get out of your way, but be willing to associate people of low position. Don't be conceited. One of the things I've learned over the years is that inevitably when you speak for 40 minutes a week in front of groups of 200, 300, 400 people, inevitably you'll say something that offends somebody. And if they're looking for offense, they'll find offense. And they may not, because they hold an offense, they may not like you anymore. And you know what? Because they held an offense, you might struggle to like them. But the reality is, that when it comes down to holding on to offense and living in harmony, one of the great signs of character is the ability to see someone who thinks differently than you, who did you wrong, and just be kind. It doesn't mean you have to be best friends, but we also have to leave room for redemption. That maybe we caught them in a bad moment. I mean, maybe the car didn't start this morning and they were worried about how they were going to pay for the bill to get the repair. He says, do not repay anyone evil for evil. Be careful to do what is right in the eyes of everyone. And I love this. If it is possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace with everyone. Why do you think Paul says, as far as it depends on you? Because a lot of times it does depend upon us to not hold on to the offense. You know, someone moved your item. This is one of the things, sometimes I will put stuff in a specific place in my house. There's a family of 5 and you know, I'll put my keys in a specific spot and then I go to look and they're not where I put them. And all of a sudden I'm like, why would you mess with my key? Why? Like, and be almost offended at it and then get mad and be like, everybody's always moving my stuff and like I have no space for my stuff. And then my attitude gets really bad. And then I'm just down on everyone when in reality, I could just, hey, does anybody know where they're at? Find them and move on. Because sometimes it really does depend on me if I want to live at peace with everyone. You know what it's like to have relational unpeace. It's miserable. If you love and have a relationship that matters to you, it's miserable to not be at peace. You can choose to live in peace. The word that's used to bless someone in that passage is the word eulogio. To speak well of, to wish the best for someone. In view of God's mercy, Paul says, offer your bodies as a living sacrifice. Now, the very words living sacrifice just kind of seems to be a little bit of an oxymoron, because the way it had always looked in Jesus' day, where they would sacrifice a lamb, and that meant that the lamb had to pay for its life. Jesus paid with his life for us to have life. He took our place as a sacrifice. Paul's not asking us to die, but he's asking us to live as a living sacrifice, meaning that part of the choice we have to make is not to live offended. And sometimes that's a sacrifice we're willing to make so that people can encounter God. That the people of God should be some of the least offendable people on earth. He said, live holy and pleasing to God. This is your true and proper worship. 12:16 goes on to say, live in harmony with one another. Do not be proud and do not be conceited. You see, too often we become worried about proving who's right. And we'll get offended. And when we talk about politics or belief, and we get so fired up that we begin to enter into a holy war with people over a belief or thought, when in reality, our job and our mission is to engage people with Jesus. Jesus can take care of their behavior. But sometimes we become so concerned at convincing them that we're right in our thoughts about God that we cease to be loving. Jesus did not tell us to be right. He told us to be loving. He told us to love him and to love our neighbors. Not to be so focused on I'm right. As a matter of fact, when it comes to you, without Jesus, you were wrong. And the only thing that could make you right and give you peace with God was the sacrifice of Jesus. And sometimes the way we just need to move is to listen, keep our mouths quiet, and wait for an opportunity to love well, because that's when the door for transformation can be open. Ephesians chapter 4:2, Paul says, be patient with each other. Have you ever noticed when it comes to our actions and what we do, we want people to judge us by our motives? And we say things like, I meant well. I didn't mean to be hurtful there. Like my intention was to help. And we want to be judged by our intentions, but we often judge others by their actions. And when we judge others by their actions, we fill in a blank about their intention that we can't possibly know. And maybe they were just having a bad day. Maybe they were going through some things. And we need to make allowances for each other's faults because of the love of Jesus. I love that it says in the passage before, it says, live in harmony with one another. See, your life is too short and your calling too great to be offended by something small. I have watched long-standing offenses be carried out for generations, where people literally live their entire life holding on to an offense that happened in the family a generation or two before. Where cousins literally wouldn't speak to each other because of something that happened between two siblings a generation in the past. And their life was just marred by constant offense. And the reality is, when we hold on to one offense, it becomes easier to pick up other offenses. When we refuse to let them go or set down offenses, the next thing you know, our life can become filled with unnecessary offense. You were made for a time that is too short, that is short. You only have so much time to carry out the mission of God. You only have so much time to spend loving your neighbor. So anything that would impede on that has to be dealt with. Your life is too short and your calling is too great. You were made for the purposes of God, not the purposes of your own selfish ambition and pride. Proverbs 19 verse 11 says, a person's wisdom yields patience. It is to one's glory to overlook an offense. That overlooking an offense, you're in the kitchen. We've got a small kitchen at our house, and I don't know why, but when I think about places where I get frustrated with other people, irritated at other people, it's the kitchen. Like, it doesn't take long in a family of 5 to get a bunch of dishes, and the dishes get backed up. Then you're cooking, and there are dishes backed up, and you look in the dishwasher, and the dishwasher could have been filled, but it hasn't been filled, and that's got to be somebody's fault. And I catch myself or all of a sudden I go in there to do something and then there's 3 people in there and there's not much room to turn around. The dishwasher's down because I'm doing dishes I feel like someone else should have done, and I'm trying to get things clean so I can cook, and I'm just totally can get offended when the reality is the wise response there is to do something about it and keep my mouth shut. See, a person's wisdom yields patience. After all, we all know it's hard to grow. We want people to be patient with us as we learn. We all know some of our own faults, but yet when it comes to others, are we willing to overlook an offense? I mean, sometimes we just have a bad day and we hope that, I hope that today no one thought at work because I was in a foul mood that I was trying to be a jerk. So how much more would we be wise if we chose to be patient rather than have offense? You see, love doesn't always seek to win the argument. Love seeks to protect the relationship. The relationship often offers an opportunity for transformation with another person. Friend, if it's possible, as a church, as Bethel Church, if it's possible, as far as it depends on you, live at peace. As you go out into your workplace, as far as it depends on you, live at peace. Be patient. Be kind. Be loving. When you choose to do that and leave to God His job of determining wrong and right, when you allow God to address offense, and He will, when you recognize in view of His grace your need for forgiveness, and you live out your relationships in view of God's grace, you might just find you're missing peace. Because when it came to the offenses between you and God, Jesus was willing to stand in the place you couldn't, to remove the price of your offense to His Father. You might find missing peace by dropping the offense. I love you, Bethel. Have a great week.
Hey, thanks so much for watching. Are you ready to take your next step? We would love to hear from you. You can send an email to hello@bethel.us. You can send us a message on Facebook, or you can let us know in the Bethel app. And speaking of the Bethel app, take a moment, if you haven't already, to go to your app store and search Bethel Putco to download our app. There's all kinds of great resources in the app. You can listen to messages, you can view the messages from Sunday morning, and you can also fill out a digital Connect card. You can do that today and each week to let us know that you're tuning in. You can also find some great information about our Bethel Kids Ministry and our Be the One student ministries. Also in the app, you can give. It's one of 3 ways you can give, with online giving at bethel.us/give, in our app, Bethel Putco, or through text. Hey, thanks again for joining us. We hope you have a great day and know that you are loved.